In technical terms, the AD60 class were a Beyer-Garratt patent articulated 4-cylinder, simple, non-condensing, coal-fired, superheated 484 plus 484 heavy goods steam train locomotive built by Beyer Peacock Company for the New South Wales Government Railways. Phew, now we've got that out of the way. The AD60 class Beyer-Garratt patent consists of a boiler carried on a separate frame in the centre of the locomotive and supported by the frames of the two engines, one at each end. The locomotive consists of the three parts: a front engine unit carrying a water tank, an intermediate chassis supporting the boiler and the cab, and the rear engine unit carrying a coal bunker and another water tank. The design incorporated the most modern technology to minimize maintenance and repairs, including an integral cast steel engine bed frames incorporating the cylinders, large steel boiler with round top firebox and flexible stays, mechanical stoker, roller bearings fitted to the bogie, coupled wheels and crank pins, and a valve gear operated by Hadfield powered reversing gear. This was the only type of Garratt locomotive to operate on the New South Wales railways. Designed to be a light axle load, they were intended for hauling feeder branch line services to the main lines where heavier mainline locomotives could continue with the load. In 1949, 25 were initially ordered from Beyer Peacock and Company, followed by a further 25. Following a change of policy in favour of diesel traction, negotiations were entered into in order to cancel the last part of the order. 42 complete locomotives were delivered, together with spare parts equating to approximately 5 further locomotives. Those 5 sets of parts did not include engine unit frames, and the cancellation contract stipulated that the government railways could not assemble the spare parts into complete locomotives without paying substantial royalties to Beyer Peacock. The locomotives were delivered in their major component pieces and were built into complete locomotives in New South Wales. Locomotive 6002 was the first to enter service in July 1952, with the last delivered on the 2nd of January 1957. The locomotives were the most powerful to operate in Australia, but behind the D57 in terms of tractive effort. Early trials established that the 14.2-tonne coal bunker was insufficient to allow the locomotives to operate from Enfield in Sydney to Goulburn, resulting in the bunkers being enlarged to carry 18 tonnes. Ventilation of the cabs caused considerable concern, and the class was banned from working through single-line tunnels. It was found driving the locomotives bunker first, or in reverse, partially improved the airflow into the cab. When it became apparent that the Garratt would see more service on main lines than on the lighter branch lines, it was decided to increase the tractive effort of a number of the class by enlarging the cylinder diameter and by alternating the weight distribution of the bogies. This increased the axle load on each of the driving wheels, with 30 locomotives upgraded. To distinguish these improvements, a double plus sign was painted after the number, and they were nicknamed the Super Garratts. These 30 were also fitted with dual controls for bunker first running and denoted DC. 6012 was the first of the class to be withdrawn in 1955. Diesel engines accounted for the gradual withdrawal of the other of the class from 1965 onwards. The last withdrawn was 6042, which operated the final New South Wales Government Railway steam service on the 22nd of February 1973. Today, only 4 of the AD60 class remain, including 6029, the only preserved AD60 in operating condition. It is also the only Super Garratt in preservation. 6029 entered service in 1954 on the main North Line, and also working on the main South Line and later the main Western Line. On 17 February 1959, the locomotive was converted to dual control and had an extension to the coal bunker, increasing its coal capacity. It was withdrawn from service in September 1972 and condemned off the list on the 4th of January 1973. In 1974, the National Museum of Australia acquired the locomotive and placed it in the custody of the Australian Railway Historical Society's Canberra Railway Museum. It worked from Sydney to Goulburn in December 1974, before hauling a special charter to Canberra on the 5th of January 1975. It was restored to operational condition and operated heritage trains for the Canberra Railway Museum. 6029 became the only locomotive of its class to operate interstate when it visited Victoria in 1980, participating in a parallel run to Wangaratta with Victorian Railways locomotive K153. Heritage tours continued over several years until boiler problems caused the locomotive to be withdrawn from service in 1981. In 1994, a feasibility study determined what was required to get 6029 back in steam. A replacement ex-New South Wales Government Railways boiler was obtained from a Victorian sawmill. Restoration commenced in 2007 and was completed in July 2014. After mainline trials, 6029 received official mainline accreditation in December 2014, with the first public trips taking place on the 28th of February 2015. In 2017, it was put up for sale by the liquidator of the Canberra Railway Museum that had collapsed, and was purchased by Philip Davis and David Somerville. On 7th of May 2022, Transport Heritage New South Wales announced that 6029 had been secured by the New South Wales Government to form part of the Transport Heritage New South Wales fleet. The Beyer-Garratt 6029 entered service in 1954. It was a reliable workhorse of the fleet in New South Wales and travelled more than 1 million kilometres before it was removed from regular service. It is now the largest operating steam locomotive in Australia. Today, 6029 remains a showcase of the Thirlmere Railway Museum, sitting alongside its flashier and arguably better-known sister, 3801.